happy Tuesday. Thanks for joining me for a craft night with friends. My name is Alyssa Thomas from Penguin and Fish, where we make cute embroidery kits for beginners. And I'm here every weeknight at 8:30 p.m. Central Time, and it's a time that we can relax and craft together. Tonight we are working on the ABC Stitch Along some more. We are going to start the owl. So we are more than halfway done with this stitching now. And I'm excited to get going on this new one tonight. So let's get going. All right, here we are tonight. So the owl is our plan. Last week we ended up finishing all our ones that we needed quilting yet. So the newt, monkey, lion, and koala are the ones that we did last week. So that was really fun to get caught up on all the quilting for our letters so far. So it's time for another stitch session on it. So let's get the pattern out, and we'll transfer the design and get going on it. Okay. So I'm going to leave the instruction page near me so I can see, and there's the traceable pattern, which we don't need because I'm going to do the iron-on pattern. And the stitches and instructions and stuff, I'm going to leave those nearby as well. So, all right, first things first, let's trim off that Iron Me text. Hope everyone had a nice long weekend. It was Labor Day this weekend. All right, snip that away. And let's transfer it to our fabric. So I have the iron heated up right now. And I'm going to get one of my pressing mats out. Let's also put a paper towel down so it'll protect the surface from having like the iron-on run through the surface, or run through the fabric, like all the little holes in the fabric. I don't want the ink going through there to my mat there. So let's preheat this guy. So I'm warming up the fabric to start out with. And then I'm going to place the pattern with the face side down, the right side down. I'm just kind of going right in the center as best I can. And I'm going to get the iron again, and let's just hold it on there for a few seconds. About 5 seconds. Let's see if it transferred. Oh yeah, for sure. See if the rest transferred. Yeah, there we go. Good to go. That was easy. So, all right, we can use this guy like about 4 more times or so. So I'm going to just keep it. It'll be with my stash of patterns now, and I can remove the paper towel. You can see it. I don't know if you can tell, but I can sort of see a little bit of line of where it came through. But we're good. We can get in the hoop and start stitching right away here. All right, let's undo our hoop. And I think we're going to start with the outlines. Oh gosh, I kind of want to start with the wings. We'll take a look at the pattern and talk through it a little bit next, I think. I do kind of want to start with the wings though, and I'll tell you why in a sec here. All right, I put the fabric over the top of the inner hoop and then placed the outer hoop over the top, and now I'm just kind of tightening it to start out with, and then I'm just going to kind of pull on the edges just to make sure it's not like bloopy anywhere. I'm pulling like with the fabric, so the fabric grain goes this way and this way, the threads, and I'm just trying to pull on both sides at the same time. And I think that's decent enough. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm just going to tighten it up a little bit more. And there we are. Our little owl feller is ready to start stitching. So I got all our colors here that we've been using. Our little plume or cloud of excess, And I'm trying to go through all these guys first, but we did go through all of our lime peel, so I just threw in another skein of there just in case. But I am trying to go through these colors first. We don't have to do the same colors. We've been kind of playing around with this project this whole time, so we'll see what we got going on here. All right, so here's our color guide. And here, oh, thanks so much, you guys. I'm glad you like it. So we'll be actually working on this all week this week, and I think we'll get done before the end of the week. Oh wait, but it's Tuesday already. I forgot, you guys. We missed yesterday. Yesterday was a holiday, so we are one less day. So maybe this will take all week. Well, anyway, we'll be working on it for an hour every evening here at 8:30 p.m. Central Time. And then, yeah, we'll get through it. Yes, tons of French knots on this guy. We will go through the 3 things you might be doing wrong with your French knot. So we can all get like perfect French knots. I think we'll probably do that on Thursday if I'm thinking about time here. But all right, so we got some satin stitch wings here. The rest is, and the satin stitch beak, I almost said nose. And then the rest is a back stitch and then all the little French knots on the inside. So normally I like just doing the back stitch first because it just gets my outline done and I can see, I feel like I get a lot done really quickly doing that. But in this case, I think I'm going to do the wings first, and those are satin stitch. And the reason why I think I'm going to do those first, because it's going to be way easier to do this back stitch that's along the edge of that after the satin stitch. And it's actually not so much that the back stitch will be easier, it would just be more difficult to do the satin stitch with the back stitch hanging out there. So if we can do the satin stitch without anything there and then do the back stitch, that's going to be easier. And I'm kind of tempted to just go with the purple, the light purple like this right away, just because I have a lot of it on this spool yet. But actually now, what if we did, like we could do like a gray owl, like a real kind of like owl. I do have a lot of these grays left. Should we do something different for this, you guys, than the original? Actually, those grays, we probably have the most gray on the spool, and maybe this little fawn color. God, I kind of want to do gray now. Let's do like light gray wings and dark gray. Ooh, this could be fun. Maybe the whole outside is kind of this neutral gray, and then the inside we can do just like tons of colorful dots, like maybe like a pile of rainbow dots almost. That'd be kind of cute. All right, we're gonna do that, I think. That's the plan so far. So I'm going to do the wings in this light gray. This is the overcast color. And we'll do the outlines in the darker gray, which is the thunder color. So yeah, let's do that. All right, so satin stitch. I'm going to do the satin stitch with just 2 strands. And I think that means I'm going to do, well, let's see, should I do the loop method of starting? I think we're just going to do my normal like 18 inches or so, like, I don't know, that's more like 24 inches or so of thread. Snip that. And I'm going to do the satin stitch with just 2 strands. Oh, Kelly says, yeah, I like the grays. Awesome! Oh, Janet says, I love your embroidery. I like watching your videos. I love working with French knots. Yeah, this is going to be fun for the French knots. We have gone over, I like doing this demo though. So we've gone over like the 3 things you might be doing wrong. So if you're struggling with French knots, this will be a good one to play around with. But if you're struggling with French knots, I bet you're doing like 1 to 3 of these 3 things. And we'll be going over that later in the week once we get to his little tummy there. I'll probably do that last after the outlines and the satin stitches are done. Before we do the text and stuff though. But all right. So we'll do that demo on Thursday first, assuming that we don't get that far until then. So we'll do, so Thursday we'll do a demo of the 3 things you might be doing wrong and, how to do a French knot, and then we'll get all these French knots done. All right, and let's get my needle minder out here tonight as well to help us. Okay. I'm going to thread my needle. I'm going to do the rest of the stitches with 3 strands of floss, but for satin stitch, we've been just using 2 strands lately, and that's so I can do that little splitting of the thread, and I'll show you that in a sec. So I'm going to tie a knot in the back, or on the end here, but it's not going to stay there forever. I'm going to use a starting way called an away knot, and which means I'm going to go from the front to the back about 3 or 4 inches away from where I actually want to start. You only have to do this if you don't have any other stitches on the design, basically. And then I'm going to start. And actually, you know what? Let's get some guidelines in here. So for satin stitch, I'm going to make all my stitches going horizontal. And it's way easier if you draw some of those stitches in first. And actually like holding it vertically, so I'm just going to kind of go right in the center here. So my goal is to have my stitches all perfectly nice and parallel when I'm done. And that's sometimes hard to do. So to help out, I like sketching and stitching in some guideposts. There we go. There's our little guideposts there. So I'll probably actually stitch in those. And then, actually I probably don't need to stitch in them. I can just look at them there. I think that's fine. So I'm going to start, if I can pick up my needle here. I actually kind of find it difficult sometimes starting at a tiny little spot like that. So I am going to start at this first guidepost. And what I'm going to do is, and this is the whole deal with the 2 strands, I'm going to put my needle in the middle of the 2 strands and then go to the opposite side and stitch. And I'm just going right outside my line just so it covers up that line. But dividing that thread in half helps the stitches lay flat next to each other when you pull it through. So it's called railroading. So I'm going to go back to my original side here, a teensy bit down, and let's divide the thread again with the needle. This is a little putsy, but I think it does actually, I think you can tell when you're done. And I'm going across again, straight across. I'm just trying to stay parallel, keep all my lines parallel, and we're going to pull through again. There we go, nice and flat next to each other. That's just what we want. And I'm going to keep going down till I get that point. Just because, like I said, it's tough to start at a little point like that. It's easier to start with bigger stitches and go down. And then I'm going to hop back up, and then we'll just go upwards with the rest. And I'm going to use my little lines as a guide to stay parallel. Sometimes I'll just do that with stitches, but I just did it in with a pencil tonight. Amy, I don't know offhand which way is the warp and which way is the weft on this. So there's no, unlike some fabrics, there's no super obvious stretch. Sometimes the warp, theoretically, the warp is the strongest. The least stretchiest, but with this, I don't think I'd be able to tell. And I've rotated the fabric and stuff so much that I don't think I'd be able to figure it out either. So for this fabric, I don't think it matters so much. But I suppose if you're making clothing, it always kind of matters. At least according to Project Runway. But yeah. Oh, Amy, maybe I didn't quite understand the question, because I don't know how you'd Google it. So the warp is the longest, it's the threads that go vertically, theoretically, and then the weft is the parts that are woven in between those vertical threads, if when they're actually producing the fabric. And I think I'm getting that right. And the warp is always like the strongest because it's holding like everything in place basically. And then the weft is technically a tiny bit easier to stretch. I mean, it depends on the fabric. Like if it's a knit or something, for sure it's easier to stretch that way. Yeah. So the selvages would be, the weft would be this way, and then the selvages would be this way. So the selvages run parallel to the warp, I believe. Let me know if I'm getting that wrong, but I think I'm right on that. And yeah, so that's the strongest part. And then on the weft is a little stretchier, but a lot of times on like this woven type fabric, like quilting weight fabric, it's not very noticeable. And then the bias is the diagonal, and that's very, very stretchy. All right, there we go, all the way down here. And then, all right, so I'm gonna start crawling up this way now. So I'm jumping back up, and we are gonna work our way up. So we are just gonna chill here tonight, making satin stitches. It would be awesome if we could finish both sides tonight. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, this is why I kind of like doing the back stitches first typically, because I feel like it feels like you get a lot done fast compared to these satin stitches. But I think, like I said earlier, satin stitches are going to be easier to get. Okay, so I have one of those little loopy knots. I'm just going to stick my needle. I think I'm going to have to rethread, but I'm going to have to stick my needle in that loop. So these loopy knots are super common in embroidery, and if you stick your needle in the loop and kind of pull up, the loop or the knot will go like towards the needle, and so like now it's right against the needle. You can try pulling on one thread or the other if it's not coming up, but once it's against the needle, you can pull the needle out and then just pull on the threads, and it should work fine. It should get that knot out. But all right, you guys, thanks again for joining tonight. So like I said, we'll be working on this guy all week this week. And maybe it'd be nice if we could even get the quilting done on this. So we've been quilting all of these as we go. Like we got all our letters. We're doing it in order here. So we're doing all of our fun little quiltings right away. We racked up a few of them and did them all last week. I'm going to let this dangle for a little. Sometimes I get that splitting or the railroading is a little tedious, but I do think it looks nice, so I'm going to just try and stick with it tonight. Maybe I'll get lazy and stop doing it, but for now, we'll keep going. So hope everyone had a nice holiday. I basically just cleaned all my craft stuff. I vacuumed and did all that. It was just like a kind of a big kind of chill cleaning session and watching TV and movies. So, all right. And I went through all my little old craft things, and I don't know if you guys saw, but I found an old latch hook that I must have started like decades ago, honestly. And it's just like one of those corny little like cat portraits. And it was like almost halfway. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe I just kind of want to finish that. And I've been wanting to like cross stitch lately just because I like, just going little by little through the whole piece and everything, and doing each little square, and I'm like, latch hook, that's gonna just feel just like that. So I spent a lot of yesterday watching movies and latch hooking, which is crazy. I haven't done that since forever. All right. So I think we'll get a few more stitches out of here, and then we'll have to start a new thread. So satin stitch does use a lot of floss up really quickly, but it does a lot of coverage, and I think it's just like ends up being pretty cute. All right, I think this will maybe be my last stitch. And then instead of tying knots, I like weaving in the ends. That way I don't have any knots on the back that any threads will catch on, and that's annoying when you've done like 40 stitches and then you realize, oh, I've caught on a thread in the back, on a knot in the back, and now it's just, I've lost all that thread. Okay, so remember our little away knot that we did at the beginning? I'm going to snip that off now. And what that was doing is basically reserving a little bit of thread that we can weave in now. And that's how we can start without a knot when we're first starting the design, since I don't want knots on the back. If you do knots on the back, that's totally fine. But I just, like I said, I hate when things catch on those, like thread catches on those knots, and I also hate the little ends of the knots, you know, like the little bitty ends, when those pull through to the front. That just kills me. I just hate pulling those to the front, and so now I don't have to worry about that at all, which is nice. All right, let's grab some more thread. Oh, is it still floss chicken if it's just if it's an owl? We can play floss owl. Yeah, I'm still gonna call it. I almost said owl chicken. Let's play owl chicken. All right, let's get our next two threads together. So again, for the rest of the piece, we'll use the 3 strands. That will just make a little bit of a thicker line. But again, the reason I do 2 strands for the satin stitch is so I can do that splitting method. We can get all the little bits laid out nicely. Ooh, Linda's asking would I ever consider doing embroidery on cards. I think we've done that. Didn't we do that once? I can't remember. Yeah, we should. Especially like with the holidays coming up, that would be a fun thing to try. I feel like we've tried that once, but maybe I'm wrong. I'll have to look back, but that would be fun. I do carry a bunch of blank cards, like almost just for that reason. Gosh, I already have a little knot here. That's annoying. Getting all twisty right away. So again, I put my needle in that loop, pull on the thread to bring that knot to the top, and then I can, boop, pop it out. All right, let's start splitting the thread here again. Ugh, it's gonna feel good tomorrow when we're done with all this satin stitch though. Not my favorite, but I always think it looks just so nice and shiny. Oh, that's what we did. Catherine says I did the tatting on the cards. Yeah, that's right, that's what we did. So I think pre-punching the cards before stitching might be a thing that we'd have to do. Just thinking about that. The trick with stitching, like embroidering on paper, is that each stitch you're basically making a perforation, right? So if you do a bunch of stitches that are small and close to each other, you're making lots of little perforations in the paper. So it can super duper weaken the paper and it can become easy to tear apart and stuff. So what we've been doing, so we did do that tatting. We did a little tatted snowflake and then attached it. So we did have to like poke holes in the card to attach it to the card. But we also did like small embroideries on a piece of fabric. And then, oh yeah, that's what Adrian's, I think, referring to now. That's where we did like itty bitty designs on fabric and then cut that out and then sewed those designs onto a card with the sewing machine. And I think that's actually really a nice way of doing it, because it's way easier to stitch on fabric, and it's actually kind of fun to sew with the sewing machine onto the cards. So that'd be my initial reaction on how to do it. Otherwise, if you're doing something like simple or abstract or something, like just a bunch of big long lines or something, or just like a star, that'd be pretty easy. But you'd still have to, like, I think, pre-punch, like, you know, with the needle, just like kind of know where you're going and poke beforehand. But yeah, it's kind of approaching that time to start thinking about that stuff again, isn't it? I'm done drawing the designs. I'm a little head on the embroidery of the month, you guys, so I do have I have the holiday stuff ready. So our embroidery of the month, this is kind of like the start of almost like our holiday stuff. So this is the embroidery of the month. For this month, it's the Raven. It comes in all like black, so you can do like some black work, which I think is really fun. We haven't done that in a while, all one color. But I think that would be fun in colors as well. So that's kind of our first realm of the holiday designs. But yeah, you guys, I'm actually starting to work on spring designs for embroidery of the month. So if you have any ideas for some springtimey designs, let me know. Ooh, and we are getting there with this guy. I think I'm going to have to get another. We're going to lose owl thread chicken. Owl chicken thread owl. We're going to lose that, I think, on this wing. We're going to have to get another piece of thread out. So I think we're going to have to start this other wing with an away knot again. Otherwise, I'm going to have to weave in the ends here and jump way over there, and I don't really want to have that big jump. So that's actually another reason I like doing the back stitches first. I know we didn't do it first this time, but I like doing the back stitch because then you have lots of backs of stitches that you can weave in. I don't know, maybe we'll have enough thread here. I guess this owl, we're headed into the autumny times with the owl. And actually, I just started watching Practical Magic before coming on here tonight. It popped up on the thing, and I'm like, oh, I haven't watched that in a really long time, and I don't really remember much about it, so that was kind of fun. I'm almost done with it, I think. I'm about, 2/3 of the way done. But time to watch all that stuff, too. What color am I using? Kathy, I am using the Overcast color. So this is the light gray in that like penguin and fish floss bundle. So Overcast. Yeah, we're changing the colors up. So it was like this purple, and just for funsies, I'm changing it to the light gray for the wings and the dark gray for the outlines. Just because, I don't know, that seemed like owly colors. And I have the most floss on these two bobbins there yet. So I'm just, I'm like, let's use that up. I'm trying to go through the floss, see if I can go through it all without using any extra. And we're totally freaking gonna win thread chicken here. So, take that. then we can start fresh. But I am going to start with that away knot again, since I don't have any stitches to weave into the backs over there. But I think this is looking nice. All right, I think maybe one more, or maybe two more up here. All right, there we go. Nice little one at the end there. Let's flip it around and weave in the end. All right, let's get started on the other side. I like the gray. I think that looks nice. And the neat thing about satin stitch is because all the stitches are basically going in the same direction, theoretically the light hits it all at the same direction too, and it gives a satin stitch like a nice shiny look to it, satiny look to it. All right, and since I'm doing satin stitch, I'm actually going to separate this thread and then put it back together, even though I only have two strands left, but it'll like automatically make the threads like lie closer, or like not be twisted basically, so I can have them lie next to each other easier. Ooh, Linda says for spring, how about something along the line of April showers bring May flowers? Oh, you guys, we did talk about, didn't we talk about last year about doing like a flower umbrella thing? I'll have to look at that again. That'd be kind of cute. I do have one flower idea, but I'll see how it turns out first. All right, let's tie a knot at the end. Again, I'm doing that little quilter's knot, and this is just to start off with that away knot again. Ooh, I'm like not keeping the fabric in this hoop very well. There, that feels better. I mean, obviously I've stretched the O kind of weird, but we'll work on that. Oh, do I ever have a problem? Yvette's asking, do I ever have a problem with the thread knotting up in the back? Yes, when I don't catch it. So what I like to do, and I'm going to come up. Ooh, let's draw our lines again. But what I like to do is actually have my left hand or my non-stitching hand like heavily involved in the back, and I'll show you what that means once I start stitching here. But I like to feel every stitch come through. Like I'll feel the needle touch my back hand, and I'll feel the thread go through. I'm gonna just draw these guideposts again, and then I actually like to use my left hand or my back hand to get the thread out of the way before the next stitch. So just being a little like active with the back hand, I find that helps a ton with not having like bloopy, messy knots on the back, because you can feel them as they happen, because you're actually touching each stitch as it goes through. So let's go right to left again. That was working pretty well. Okay, so like right now, okay, I'm coming in here and I'm going on the back, or my stitch, but on the back I'm actually feeling this needle. So, and if I hold on the back, I'm actually like touching the thread as it comes through. And now, oftentimes what I'll do is I'll swoop the thread out of the way like this with my back hand, and then I will come up with the next stitch. And what that does is now I'm kind of holding that thread taut, and I can feel it. I can feel it getting taut here, and then I let go. And so all along that way, first of all, I'm getting the thread out of the way so it doesn't make as many of those twisty knots, because I moved the thread out of the way. And I can feel the thread like go through my fingers. And I can usually tell, like, oh, that felt weird, or I felt a knot. But like you can kind of see my fingers back here. I'm just like swooping that thread out of the way. Although it's difficult now because I can't reach. So that's why sometimes I'll like stitch sideways or something. It's most likely just so I can reach with my backhand a little bit better. Oh, maybe I can go from underneath. There we go. So I always like my backhand touching the stitches. But yeah, for that swooping out of the way, and I kind of find like that's probably what helps me the most. And like I said earlier, not having knots on the back, like doing this away knot thing and weaving in the ends instead of having knots, because thread always catches on those knots, and that's annoying. And that can give you a bunch of stuff on the back too. Ooh, Amy says, I just finished a baby quilt. Should I wash it first? So wash it, like, before giving it to the baby. I always like doing that. It always kind of fluffs up the quilt a little bit, and I think it makes it feel, like, homey and loved a little bit. But it doesn't look as, like, crisp and clean, though, either, so... I think you can go either way. Because it is nice when they're crisp and nice too. All right, I didn't divide my like guidepost. I'm gonna just add an extra one here with my thread, because it seemed a little bit big. I feel like I wouldn't have stayed parallel, so I'm gonna just put an extra little guidepost in. There we go. And then I'm gonna come back up and just like fill in the blank there. Ooh, and Sylvia finished binding on a quilt today. That's exciting. Like, I always feel like that's kind of my favorite part, like, because I feel like I'm almost done then. Like the last big part of a quilt project. There. All right. Oh, you guys, I forgot all the way down here. Dang it. I guess we'll just jump back down here. I just kept going. I forgot this little bit. Like right then something felt funny. Oh, it's just because I jumped down and I could feel that back stitch there. Oh, it's a Halloween quilt too, and good to be done before Halloween. Nice. That's a win. Oh, so Amy's wondering about washing a baby quilt before giving it away in the shower. I always like to do that, but I mean, I don't think it matters either way. Like I said, I feel like it's like a fluffy, happy quilt then after washing it. But yeah, but there is something nice about how like crisp and clean a unwashed quilt is too, so yeah, I suppose it might look a little nicer before being washed, but maybe not. Depends what you're going for, I suppose. This one I don't think I'll wash before sending, just so like all the stitches and everything just look like the best they can. I think all the stitches will be just a little fluffier after going through the wash, but they should all be perfectly intact and everything still. Oh, what's the difference between satin stitch and a straight stitch? So to me, a straight stitch is just like one little line. Like one line, like just boop. Like if you're doing like fur or something like that. Oh man, I got another one of these knots and I'm all twisty already. That's annoying. This thread isn't liking me today. There we go. Ugh. All right, and let's rethread. Got a little bit left. Satin stitch is where you have lots of straight stitches next to each other. So all like right next to each other, like what we're doing now. And it creates a satiny look. So I suppose you could say that a satin stitch is made of just lots of straight stitches. So sometimes I think straight stitches and like outline stitches get confused. So like lots of times in patterns, like old, like vintage patterns and like, you know, Amazon patterns or patterns that are like designed overseas and stuff in China and that sort of thing. A lot of times in the instructions it'll say like an outline stitch, which sometimes I think can be like a straight, like, or they say straight stitch. I find that really confusing. I think like in vintage land, I think when they say an outline stitch, I think they're referring to a stem stitch. But for me, it's hard to know. Like, to me, there's lots of different ways to outline something. So I like the back stitch that has like that kind of like, that's what I did here. It kind of has that like beady looking look almost. But then there's like the stem stitch, which is very common. Very common stitch, especially on like vintage tea towels and that sort of thing, that makes outlines. And like a split stitch is another way to do outlines. So I'm always a little confused at what they're really wanting when they say an outline stitch. If it's a vintage pattern, I usually just guess that they mean a stem stitch. And I think sometimes those goofy patterns are like the patterns that aren't all the time correct. They'll even sometimes say a straight stitch for a satin stitch. And actually a straight stitch, that could also be referring to machine stitching, because I think when you just sew, if you're on a sewing machine, I think they call that a straight stitch too, so that can be confusing as well. All right, I think this is going to be my last stitch with that thread. Let's weave in the end. Okay, Cerulean Crystal saying, I was taught that the outline and the stem stitches are the same, except for the direction the braid goes. Ooh, I haven't heard that variable in that before. Ooh, I'm going to have to dig into that more. That's interesting. Oh, Cassie Talk says, my pattern says straight stitch for the grass. Oh, but shows the grass filled in like satin stitch? Interesting. So my guess is they mean satin stitch then, because like I was saying, like this is kind of just like a lot of straight stitches next to each other, but that's interesting. Yeah, that seems like one of those kind of confusing instruction bits. Like kind of how I was saying, how like sometimes it's hard to know what they really mean. Okay, yeah, if it looks like a satin stitch, I would just call it a satin, like I would just assume that they mean satin stitch. That's interesting though. Huh. We'll have to Google that too, just to see. To see an example of when people say straight stitch for satin stitch. I'm curious about that. But that's what I suspect, that it's satin stitch and it's just made of lots of straight stitches. Okay, I need more of that light gray. I don't think I had any in my scrappy bit pile. Nope, I don't. So let's get a fresh piece. Well, I suppose we need it for around the eyes too, so that's okay if I get a little bit more than I need. I'm gonna get a whole nother, I don't know, 24-inch piece or so. definitely will feel good to get these satin stitches out of the way. Tomorrow we can do like all the outlines and feel like we got a lot done. Today's when we feel like, ugh, not getting anything done, but that's okay. Oh, but it's with a pup on front laying in the grass. So maybe they're just like, is there like some blades of grass kind of going in front of the dog? Like, that would make sense that those would be straight stitches. But if the entire thing is filled in, is it filled in so it looks like satin stitches where they're all the same direction and it looks like shiny a little bit? Or is it a bunch of straight stitches and they're all like crisscrossy and filling in the whole thing? If that's the case, then, I mean, I guess maybe they are straight stitches and then that's like not really a stitch. I would just say filled with straight stitches, but in that case I wouldn't assume they'd be all lined up. I would just like have them willy-nilly everywhere. Yeah, it's on the side, but they're filled in. Oh, interesting. So, I don't know, maybe it is just like a bunch of lines everywhere. All right, I'm going to weave in the ends. I don't have to start with that away knot this time because I have stitches to actually weave in the back too. But, oh my god, I'm like stuck on something already. Oh, I got a little knot already, and I didn't do anything yet. Being a jerk butt today. And this is just with one strand too, so like what the heck's happening here? Oh, and now it just went away. Okay, whatever, guy. Being a jerk butt. Let's thread again. Zoop. Zoop. Uh-oh. Pulled through. Started reading comments again and then pulled it right on through on the second part. There we go. Third pass always holds it in. Alright. Fresh floss. Alright, well, we'll definitely get these wings done tonight. I'm tempted to just do all the satin stitch. I mean, minus the letters. Like, I kind of want to do the beak, but that means we have to decide what color to do the beak, and I don't know if I'm ready to decide that color yet. So maybe I'll just start. Maybe since we have this gray out, I'll do the eyes gray, this light gray. Or start, basically. Unless it takes us 10 more minutes to finish this, but I'm hoping we get the satin stitch done before then. Well, this is a big part of it. This is probably, this besides the letters, is probably what takes the longest on this design. Ooh, you guys, all the embroidery of the months are in the mail. So they should be to you soon. So we'll be stitching that the third, well, I guess it's the third full week. So not next week. Next week we'll be doing the letter P, which is the pig. And then the week after we'll stitch the raven. So next week is the little pig with his little mushroom there. Two little more segments that I drew here. Uh-oh. Goodness. don't think I've ever had this many knots in one evening. I don't think I got that one quite out yet. There. Getting there. Have I done wool applique with embroidery floss? I think so, with embroidery floss. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it's been a while since I've done. That seems crazy that it's been a while, but it's been a while since I've done some wool applique. But yeah, I'm thinking like if there's details on the applique, I would do that with just embroidery floss, and I'd like blanket stitch it on probably with embroidery floss too, if I'm doing it by hand. Man, that's crazy. It feels like I can't even remember the last thing I did a wool applique of. We'll have to get some of that out again sometime here. That'd be fun. I always feel like wool applique, that's like some nice, you can get some nice, quick, pretty projects done quickly. Come back here, guy. I think this will be pretty in gray. I like the idea of gray, but like lots of pops of color in the belly for the French knots. So I think that'll be kind of a fun contrast, like the kind of neutral colors with the like really poppy bright colors. We could even change like the positions of the colors if we wanted to, and do like a whole like an ombre like rainbow going down his belly. That'd be kind of fun too. We will see. That's too much decision making for tonight. The only decision tonight was what color to do these wings and the outline. That's enough. Ooh, it's gonna be harder to split though. Alright, we got, I don't know, maybe 5 more stitches here. Little baby stitches. I think that railroading, like putting the thread in between here, that might be causing this to twist quite a bit too. I don't know, we're giving it a go. Been trying to just practice with doing that splitting. In general, I think it looks nice though. Alright. 2 little baby ones and we're done. Okay. I'm gonna weave in these ends once I get rid of this knot. There we are. And then I think I'm going to use this gray still, but I think I'm going to start fresh. Because I'm going to start using 3 strands of floss now. So the outlines I'm doing 3 strands, just because then I get a little thicker line than if I would just continue with the 2. So I'm going to put that in the scrap pile and then come back to our original cut, which should have like 4 strands in, so I'm just going to remove one. Come on. There we go. And now I'll set that one aside. Tangled. And here we go. So now we should have 3 strands in here. Yep. All right, so I'm going to use this to stitch around the eyes. And you know what? I think I'm going to do that like cheater way of doing a French knot where I just kind of leave the end out. Like I'm going to start from the front and just leave the end out so it's like enough for one last stitch and enough to weave in the end. So I'm just going to let it hang out there, which is goofy, but I don't know. It's like a lazy way of doing it in a way not. I still feel like I don't have any, like enough stitches in the area to like weave in the backs of. So we're just going to start this back stitch with that little end hanging out. Dang, we might even get this little eyeball done yet tonight. So I did say that like Thursday we'll do that demo on how to do a French knot and like the 3 things that you might be doing wrong. We'll do that demo again. I always like doing that when we're working on a piece with a lot of French knots. So we'll do that, like I said, on Thursday. But if we get up to that point where we're done with everything and it's before Thursday, like if we get really far, well, I guess it's Wednesday tomorrow already. But let's say we get really far on Wednesday and want to start French knots. Instead, we'll do, we'll start the O's or do this over here, and then we can like for sure just start the French knots on Thursday. I think that's a good fresh way of doing that. So now we're doing the back stitch. What I would consider one of many outline stitches, but yeah, if you see outline stitch in a pattern, I think it typically means a stem stitch, but sometimes the picture isn't a stem stitch, and sometimes they call an outline stitch, like, I know I've seen people like post on Facebook, like, in groups, like pictures, like, what does this mean? The instruction says that they're both outline stitches, but they're clearly 2 different stitches, so that's annoying. So some of those patterns are a little shady on the instructions. But yeah, but in vintage patterns, I think an outline stitch typically means like a stem stitch. But I'm gonna have to look at that whole thing, like an outline stitch is like one, like the cording goes, or like the twist goes in one direction, and then in stem stitch it's the other direction. That's kind of interesting. I'm gonna have to dig into that a little bit more. So I'm gonna stitch here till I have 1 stitch left, because I'm gonna do that last stitch with this little bit that's hanging out, and I have that hanging out on this side versus the back, just so it's out of my way. I can see it, and I'm not catching it on the back. And I only do this when I only have to stitch a small little area, like just going around there. All right, so 2 more stitches, I think, and I'll weave in this end, and then we will come back and finish with this stitch, with the thread here. All right, it's looking cute. How do you wash these when you're done? You can just stick them in the wash. So, like, ideally, you're going to do it on like a gentle cycle, that sort of thing. But I've washed quilts and other things and like tea towels and stuff with embroidery on, and haven't really had any problem with like anything coming out. At most, it'll get a little floofier because it's cotton thread. All right, now I'm going to grab this end too, but it should still look totally fine. If you have really large stitches, so this is another reason why okay, I'm going to just finish this stitch, but why I try and have the back nice and clean and not have like, like why I'm not leaping from this side to this side with the thread, or leaping from here to there or whatever, why I kind of try and keep each area a little bit contained. Did I do that stitch? Yeah. I'm going to weave in this end too. And why I weave in the ends because then I don't have like big, we call them toe catchers, or we have been for the past few years here calling them toe catchers, but when you have like a really big thing and you know you can get a finger underneath it or something, or like something could get caught on it, I'd probably like try not to wash it with like a washing machine full of zippers or things like that, things that can get caught or catch on the stitches. But I don't know, in general I haven't had any issue washing them. All right, so I think that's good for the night. I'm really happy that we got all that satin stitch done, because that's kind of a big time chunk doing all that. But now that it's done, so that's great. So I think the outline and like the rest of this is going to go so fast tomorrow, and then Thursday we'll come in and do these French knots. And dang, I think we might still get this done with Friday left over. Depending on how we do the O's, maybe we can decide on that tomorrow. But we might still have time to quilt this on Friday, which would be amazing. So, all right, you guys. So thanks again for hopping in here with me tonight. I appreciate having hung out with you guys again. I know we weren't here yesterday, so short week this week. But like I said, I think we're going to finish this guy super quick. But awesome. So I appreciate seeing you all, and I will see you tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. Central Time again. Have a lovely evening. Good night.